Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. To see if we're live. Alrighty. We are live. Thank God. Okay, let's get started. Good to see everybody. Oh, I got to send a message out to everybody that we're online. Hold on a second. Forget about that. Okay, it's done. I think it's done. Yeah, it's done. Okay, everybody, let's get started. I'll get my guitar. Okay, we're going to chant Nitai Pada Kamala. Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chandra Shushita. Yechaya Yakachudai Pain on a time Bili Pai Radha Krishna Bhayatenai Trinakori Daruni Tire Bai Say Sambanana Lila Mugeni Machilo Samsara Suke Vichakule Kikori Veda Alankara Matahoya Taivada Fasharia Asachere Sachakori Mani Vichaya Karuna Ebe Vajrada Krishna Pai Darunitai Charana Dukani Vitaya Charana Satya Sevaka Nitya Nitai Pada Satakoro Vasha Narotamu Paruduki Nitai Mole Korosuki Rakuranga Charanida Vasha Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushita Yechaya Yakachura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, we bow, Haribo, Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paravrikacharya, all Stateta Sitashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Mahashila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Sayam Mukunda, Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturam Ki Jai, Jagadava Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasade Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Devashesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarde. So Megana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshura Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurveda. Actually, I forgot to read the translation of this nice poem written by Narottam Thakur. In this material world, which is progressing towards hell, there's always a blazing fire, and everyone is struggling hard without finding peace. Therefore, if the world wants to have real peace, it should take shelter under the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, which are cooling like the shining of millions of moons. Unless one takes shelter under the shade of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, it will be very difficult to approach Radha Krishna. Anyone who does not establish their relationship with Lord Nityananda is simply spoiling their boon of human birth in the animal propensities of sense gratification. Never saying the names of Lord Nityananda and Lord Caitanya, they become absorbed in so-called material enjoyment, and their academic education and birth in a high family or great nation will not protect them at the time of death. They have become maddened by a false concept of bodily life, and thus they have forgotten their eternal relationship with Lord Nityananda. Such forgetful persons accept the illusory energy as factual. When you achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda, then you will be able to approach Radha Krishna. Firmly catch hold of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. The lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are not illusion. They are a fact, and anyone who engages in the transcendental loving service of Lord Nityananda immediately achieves their transcendental position on the spiritual platform, which is eternal and blissful. Therefore, always try to catch the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Narottam Das Thakur says, "My dear Lord Nityananda, I am very unhappy, and I am praying to you to make me happy. Please keep me in the corner of your lotus feet." So, of course, this is very applicable to the chapter in the Caitanya Caritamrta that we're reading right now, which is about Raghunath Das Goswami, who got Lord Chaitanya's mercy because he approached Lord Nityananda first. Otherwise, it would not have been possible. So, the question is, how do you approach Lord Nityananda? Lord Nityananda is the original guru. You can approach Lord Nityananda through the spiritual master. And especially one can please Lord Nityananda by giving others Krishna consciousness, by taking a risk. A devotee of Lord Nityananda is more merciful than Krishna himself, because a devotee of Lord Nityananda takes a risk to bring others to Krishna consciousness. Of course, he doesn't risk his own spiritual life, but he may risk himself physically, or risk his material happiness or comfortable situation, something like that. But he never risks his spiritual life, because in order to bring one to Krishna conscious, one has to be Krishna conscious. Just like the example sometimes used in this regard is in an airplane. Okay, let's talk about an airplane. In an airplane, they make an announcement before the airplane takes off that in the case of a sudden depression, not depression, lack of pressure, not depression in terms of yourself getting depressed, depression in the cabin, then what will happen is the mask will fall down. But you're supposed to put the mask on yourself before putting the mask on some kid or someone else that you want to help. So in other words, save yourself, and you can save others. How about that? Okay, let's go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. We're reading from the 6th chapter of the Antya Lila. We'll probably finish this chapter today. And this chapter is about Lord Chaitanya's interactions with Raghunath Das Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami achieving the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and basically becoming so renounced that in our eyes it's practically frightening how renounced he became. Of course, as I mentioned last night in class, we don't imitate Raghunath Das Goswami's renunciation. First of all, he has a spiritual body. Second of all, it's his duty to show extreme renunciation. It's not our duty to show extreme renunciation. Second of all, he's in a different order of life than the rest of us. He was in the Babaji order of life, and the sannyasis in our movement are in the Parvajacharya order of life, which means they travel widely and they preach Krishna consciousness, so they don't have to undergo the same austerities. Of course, still, one should not eat too much. Yuktahara viharasha, as Krishna states in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one should be moderate in his eating, moderate in his bodily activities and physical things like that. Anyway, let's get on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Without further ado, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we're continuing from text 313 in the 6th chapter of the Antya Lila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, who heard all these stories, even the story about Raghunath Das Goswami, from Raghunath Das Goswami directly. Because Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami's Bhajan Kutir was right next to Raghunath Das Goswami's Bhajan Kutir. So he had that association. And so that's why we have the mercy of hearing all these pastimes and the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami associated with the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Pranaraksha lagi ke yeva karena bhakshana taha kana apanake kai nirveda vachana. Whatever he ate was only to keep his body and soul together, and when he ate, he would reproach himself thus. Atmanam chid vijaniyat param jnana dutasyaha kimichan kasyavahitor dayam pushnati lambataha. If one's heart has been cleansed by perfect knowledge and one has understood Krishna, the Supreme Brahman, he then gains everything. Why should such a person act like a debauchee by trying to maintain his material body very carefully? Now, don't follow this particular example. That is the highest Paramahamsa order. We are meant to use this body and take care of it very carefully because the body belongs to Krishna. And also, he was understanding the body belongs to Krishna, and he did take care of his body. He didn't neglect the body. He just had less bodily necessities than we do. But still, we should be very careful not to feel guilty that we're doing something to take care of this body. Just like if you have a car, don't feel guilty that you take care of your car, you clean it, you change the oil on the car. Because if you don't do that, you will not have a car to use in Krishna's service. And if you don't take care of the body and eat the proper diet and go to a doctor if necessary, you won't have a body to use in Krishna's service. This verse, Bhagavatam 7:15-40, was spoken by Narada to Yudhisthira Maharaj regarding the householder's liberation from material bondage. On the spiritual platform, one does not unnecessarily, there's that key word, unnecessarily care for the body. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has said, Deya Smriti Nahi Yara Samsara Bandhana Kahantara. One who is spiritually situated does not think that he is the body. Therefore he can transcendently execute severe penances in the renounced order of life. The best example of such renunciation is Raghunath Das Goswami. Of course, those severe penances should not harm the body. That is penance in the mode of ignorance. So we don't do things that harm the body. But we understand that, as Krishna says in the Gita, the self-realized soul understands that when the body stands up, sits down, does this or does that, he himself is not doing any of those things. The body is simply doing it. Got it. Of course, you're responsible for what the body does. That reminds me of a funny story. That, let's say, you're driving a car, this is appropriate for me, and you're going very fast, and the police stop you, and they say, do you know how fast you were going? And you said, I wasn't going fast, the car was going fast. You know, it's the car's fault, not my fault, because I understand I'm not the car. But you're still responsible for what the body does. That's a no-brainer. Prasadana pasarira yatana vikaya dvitina dina haile patasari raya. Lord Jagannath's prasadam is sold by shopkeepers, and that which is not sold decomposes after 2 or 3 days. Singadware gaviage sebata dade Sadagande tai lingiyai haitana pare. All the decomposed food is thrown before the cows from Tailanga at the Singadwara gate. Because of its rotten odor, even the cows cannot eat it. Semakta ratgunata ratre garayane. Mata Pakailya Pele Garedia Bahubani. At night, Raghunath Das would collect that decomposed rice, bring it home, and wash it with ample water. Vitarera Dridaye, Majivatapaya, Lavanadia Raghunatha, Sayana Koya. Then he ate the hard inner portion of the rice with salt. That was his meal. Ekadina Sarupataha, Karite Dikila, Hasyatara Kichu Magia Kaila. One day, Sarup Damodar saw the activities of Raghunath Das. Thus he smiled and asked for a small portion of that food and ate it. Sarupatai Aiche Amitaka Niti Niti Amasavaya Nahideha Kito Mara Prakati. Sarup Damodar said, "You eat such nectar every day, but you never offer it to us. What is your character?" So one may say, wasn't he neglecting his body by eating that? Well, Prabhupada explains in an interesting verse that Krishna is the fire of digestion. I believe the word uses Jamadagni. Agni. The Agni in the stomach. Okay. And so Krishna is the fire of digestion. And if Krishna wants, I mean, this is something like very much akin to atomic energy, where you can have one little teeny particle, and that has enough energy in it when it's properly utilized through the process of atomic fusion. That has enough energy in it to light up a whole city for some period of time. Wow. Actually, scientists are trying to develop now a fusion reactor whereby they can take an insignificant amount of water, for example, and just basically produce some almost unlimited energy from that. That involves something that's really complex, and the scientists have not really perfected it yet. But when the scientists look at our bodies, they see that our bodies are capable of performing amazing feats like transmuting one element into another. You know, ultimately there's a bodily way to transmute bell metal to gold. So our bodies have that capacity. So if someone is pleasing Krishna, is Krishna conscious, they can take one drop of buttermilk, and that can be enough for a whole week to keep them going. I mean, that's the miracle. Even if one's not Krishna conscious, the way that the body transforms food to energy is miraculous. And it happens on the subatomic platform. I mean, it's really amazing if you look inside the cell and see how the cell is producing energy, or how the energy is produced in the body. It is amazing. There's something called the proton pump, for those of you who are biologists. Anyway, so it can be done, and Raghunath Das Goswami was not destroying his body. He was actually taking care of his body, and Krishna was basically manifesting all the energy. I mean, you could see he had a very clear mind. Like if I start to fast completely like that, I don't know if I'll be able to speak or think properly. Whereas Raghunath Das Goswami, his mind was so clear, and other Goswamis like Jiva Goswami writing the most erudite philosophy. So we can see that they were getting the energy from the food. So I think it's an extremely important point when we think about our austerities and what austerities we should execute. We should eat food that helps us have the maximum amount of energy for serving Krishna and carrying out our particular duties in this world. That's it. So for Raghunath Das Goswami, that was enough. Some little inner portion of rice washed with salt. Govindara Mukhe Prabhu Sevarta Shunila Haradina Se Prabhu Kahite Lagila. Actually, I just want to add another thing. In fact, you even see yogis who were able to just like stop eating and drinking completely for months at a time. Even there have been studies about these yogis where they've been locked up in a room and for a month or something like that, and they didn't eat or drink, and they were still fine. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard news of this from the mouth of Govinda, he went there the next day and spoke as follows. Khanhavastu kalsabe more navdeha kine hetabali ekagrasa karila vakshane. What nice things are you eating? Why don't you give anything to me? Saying this, he forcibly took a morsel and began to eat. Adagrasa laite sorupa haite te dalila tava yogya nahi bale karinila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking another morsel of food, Swarup Damodar caught him by the hand and said, "It is not fit for you." Thus he forcibly took the food away. He's the only one who could do that to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu bale niti niti nana prasada kai haiche swada harakona prasade na pai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Of course, every day I eat varieties of prasadam, but I've never tasted such nice prasadam as that which Raghunath is eating." This is all on the spiritual platform. Because when pure devotees eat or honor prasadam, they're actually tasting Krishna directly. Hey Mata Mahaprabhu Nana Lila Kare Raghunathera Vairagyate Ki Santosha Antare. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed many pastimes at Jagannath Puri. Seeing the severe penances performed by Raghunath Das and the renounced order, the Lord was greatly satisfied. Apana Udhara He Raghunatha Dasa Gauranga Stavakalpa Vrikshe Kariyachena Prakasha. In his poem known as the Gauranga Stavakalpa Vriksha, Raghunath Das has described his personal deliverance. And here's a quote from it. Mahasambhadava api patitam mudricha kripaya swarupeya sviye kujanam api mam yasha mudita urogunjaharam priyamapi chakovardhana shirang tadaume gorango hridaya udayan mam matayati. Although I'm a fallen soul, the lowest of men, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered me from the blazing forest fire of great material opulence by his mercy. He handed me over in great pleasure to Swarup Damodar, his personal associate. The Lord also gave me the garland of small conch shells, that's Gunjamala, that he wore on his chest, and a stone from Govardhan Hill, although they were very dear to him. That same Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakens within my heart and makes me mad after him. This verse is Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha 11. Eita kahilun Raghunathera milana ihaye shunevaya Chaitanya charana. Thus I have described the meeting of Raghunath Das with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who hears about this incident attains the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Wow. And finally, this is usually the last verse in every chapter. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pare Yarahasha Chaitanya Charitamrta Kaye Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Antya Lila, 6th chapter, describing Lord Chaitanya's meeting with Raghunath Das Goswami. So we finished chapter 6. Finished. 133. Okay, to the end of chapter chapter 6. And now we'll start chapter 7. Chapter 7 is entitled The Meeting of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Vallabhabhata. Now, for those of you who don't know, Vallabhabhata is the head of the Vallabhacharya Sampradaya, and it's sometimes called Pushti Marg, or nourishing path. And Vallabhacharya was initiated by Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, as we'll read in this particular chapter. So let's read the chapter summary first. The following summary of chapter 7 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and is Amrita Prabhaha Bhasha. In this chapter, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with Vallabhabhata is described. There was some joking behavior between these two personalities, and finally Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu corrected Vallabhabhata and sympathetically accepted an invitation from him. Before this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that Vallabhabhata was greatly attached to Gadadhar Pandit. Therefore, he acted as if displeased with Gadadhar Pandit. Later, when Vallabhabhata became intimately connected with the Lord advised him to take instructions from Gadadhar Pandit. Thus, the Lord expressed his feelings of love for Gadadhar Pandit. Quite an interesting story. Okay, let's start. Caitanya Chalanam Bhavaja Makaranda Lila Lihovaje Yesham Prasada Matrena Amaro Pyamaro Bhavet. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Simply by the causeless mercy of the devotees engaged in licking honey from his lotus feet, even a fallen soul becomes eternally liberated. Wow. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Varshantarayata Godera, Bhakta Ganaila, Urvavat Mahaprabhu, Sabare Milila. The next year, all the devotees of Bengal went to visit Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as previously, the Lord met each and every one of them. Hey Mata Vilasa Prabhura Bhakta Ganalana, Hena Kale Vallabhabhata, Milila Asya. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes with his devotees. Then a learned scholar named Vallabhabhata went to Jagannath Puri to meet the Lord. For a description of Vallabhabhata, one may refer to Madhya Lila chapter 19, text 61. And of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had previously met Vallabhabhata. And what happened during this previous meeting, Vallabhabhata was very submissive to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he did not exhibit pride. But at this particular point, he begins to exhibit pride with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pride in his learning. Asya Vandilabhata Prabhura Charane Prabhu Bhagavata Budye Kaila Lingane. When Vallabhabhata arrived, he offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of the Lord. Accepting him as a great devotee, the Lord embraced him. Manya Kari Prabhu Tare Nikate Vasaila Vinaya Kariyavata Kagite Lagila. With great respect, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seated Vallabhabhata near him. Then Vallabhabhata very humbly began to speak. Bahudina Manuvrata Toma Deki Vare Jagannatha Purna Kaila Deki Lun Tumare. For a long time he said, I have desired to see you, my Lord. Now Lord Jagannath has fulfilled this desire, therefore I am seeing you. Tomara Darshana Ye Paya Se Bhagyavan Tomake Dekiye Hena Sakshat Bhagavan. One who receives your audience is fortunate indeed, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Wow. Tomare Ye Smaranakare Sehaya Pavitra Darshane Pavitra Habe Iteki Vichitra. Since one who remembers you is purified, why should it be astonishing that one becomes purified by seeing you? Yesham samsmaranat pumsam sadya shudyanti vaigraha kim puna lashana sparsha pada shochasanadibhi. One can immediately purify his entire house simply by remembering exalted personalities, to say nothing of directly seeing them, touching their lotus feet, washing their feet, or offering them places to sit, as actually from the Bhagavatam 119.33. It's a very important instruction for us. Just by remembering, let's say if we remember Srila Prabhupada and his activities and his teaching, we can immediately purify our whole existence. Kali Kalera Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtan Krishna Shakti Vinanaki Tara Vravartana. Famous verse. The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. Tata Pravartaila to me. Eta Pramana Krishna Shakti Dada to me. Ite Nahi Ana. You have spread the Sankirtan movement of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, it is evident that you have been empowered by Lord Krishna. There's no question about it. So Srimad Vacharya has brought our attention to this quotation from the Narayana Sankita. Varvariyara janar Vishnu Pancharatrais tu kevalai Kalo tu nama matrena Pujate Bhagavan Harihi. In the Dwapara Yuga, one could satisfy Krishna or Vishnu only by worshipping opulently according to the Pancharatraki system. But in the age of Kali, one can satisfy and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari simply by chanting his holy name. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that unless one is directly empowered by the causeless mercy of Krishna, one cannot become the spiritual master of the entire world, Jagat Guru. One cannot become an acharya simply by mental speculation. The true acharya presents Krishna to everyone by preaching the holy name of the Lord throughout the world. Thus, the conditioned souls, purified by chanting the holy name, are liberated from the blazing fire of material existence. In this way, spiritual benefit grows increasingly full, like the waxing moon in the sky. Of course, that's a reflection of the first verse of the Shikshashtakam. The true acharya, the spiritual master of the entire world, must be considered an incarnation of Krishna's mercy. Indeed, he is personally embracing Krishna. He is therefore the spiritual master of all the varnas, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, and shudra, and all the ashramas, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Since he is understood to be the most advanced devotee, he is called Paramahamsa Thakur. Thakura is a title of honor offered to the Paramahamsa. Therefore, one who acts as an acharya, directly presenting Lord Krishna by spreading his name and fame, is also to be called Paramahamsa Thakur. Of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is called Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jagate Garila Tume Krishna Nama Prakashe Ye Tumadeke Se Krishna Preme Batse. You have manifested the holy name of Krishna throughout the entire world. Anyone who sees you is immediately absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Wow. Preme Parakasha Nahi Krishna Shakti Vine Krishna Eka Prema Data Shastra Pramane. Without being especially empowered by Krishna, one cannot manifest ecstatic love of Krishna, for Krishna is the only one who gives ecstatic love. That is the verdict of all revealed scriptures. Santvavatara Vahava Pushkara Navasya Sarvatovataha Krishna Rangyakovala Takshu Abhiprema Do Bhavati. There may be many auspicious incarnations of the personality of Godhead, but who other than Lord Sri Krishna can bestow love of God upon the surrendered souls? This is a verse written by Bilvamangal Thakur. It is quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Lagu Bhagavatamrita 1.537. Mahaprabhu Kai Shunabhata Mahamati Mayavadi Sannyasi Ami Najani Krishna Bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "My dear Balabhabata, you are a learned scholar. Kindly listen to me. I'm a sannyasi of the Mayavada school. Therefore, I have no chance of knowing what Krishna Bhakti is. Advaitacharya Goswami Sakshadishvara Tanra Sange Amaramana Haila Nirmala. Nevertheless, my mind has become purified because I have associated with Advaitacharya, who is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarva Shastri Krishna Bhakti Nahi Anrasama Vataiva Advaitacharya Tanra Nama." He is unparalleled in his understanding of all the revealed scriptures and the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Therefore he is called Advaitacharya. Yanhara Kripate Malacharaya Krishna Bhakti Ke Kahite Pare Tanra Vaishnavata Shakti. He is such a great personality that by his mercy he can convert even the meat-eaters, malechas, to the devotional service of Krishna, who therefore can estimate the power of his Vaishnavism. Prabhupada says it is extremely difficult to convert a malecha or meat-eater into a devotee of Lord Krishna. Therefore, anyone who can do so is situated on the highest level of Vaishnavism. It's still hard. It is very hard. Because the Bhagavatam says that one who is actually eating meat cannot be attracted to Krishna. What is that statement? That one, the chanting of Krishna's glories is the remedial measure to get rid of all the problems in this world. Everyone will be attracted except for those who are killers of animals. Puman virajeta bina poshugnat. Not those people. So it's very, very difficult. And somehow or other Prabhupada has empowered us to be able to do that. Nityananda Vaduta Sakshadishvara Pavonmare Mata Krishna Premera Sagara. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, the Avaduta, is also directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is always intoxicated with the madness of ecstatic love. Indeed, he is an ocean of love of Krishna. Sadarshana Veta Bhattacharya Sarvabhauma Sadarshana Jagat Guru Bhagavatotama. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya perfectly knows the 6 philosophical theses. Therefore, he is the spiritual master of the entire world, and teaching the 6 paths of philosophy, he is the best of devotees. See how Lord Chaitanya is glorifying the devotees. So we can also do that when someone glorifies us. Instead of putting ourselves down, we can say, well, I've had the association of this devotee, that devotee, and that's the cause of whatever quality or good quality you see manifest in me. Taina de kaila more Bhakti Yoga Para Tanur Pasade Janilun Krishna Bhakti Yoga Sara. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown me the limit of devotional service. Only by his mercy have I understood devotional service to Krishna is the essence of all mystic yoga. Ramananda Raya Krishna Rasera Nidhana Tena Janayala Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. Srila Ramananda Roy is the ultimate knower of the transcendental mellows of Lord Krishna's devotional service. He has instructed me that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another thing the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching here is that if you want to appreciate and approach the Lord, you have to appreciate and serve the Lord's devotees, which I think Bhagavad will have trouble doing, as he's thinking he's a great devotee. At this point, Tate Prema Bhakti Purushartha Shiromani Ragamarge Prema Bhakti Saradhika Jani. Through the mercy of Ramananda Roy, I have understood that ecstatic love of Krishna is the highest goal of life, and that spontaneous love of Krishna is the highest perfection. Purushartha means the goal of life, generally refers to religion, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and finally, liberation. However, above these 4 kinds of Purusharthas, love of Godhead stands supreme. It is called Parama Purushartha. Pancha Purushartha. which means the fifth, the supreme goal of life, or Purushartha Shiromani, the most exalted of all Purusharthas. Lord Krishna is worshipped by regulated devotional service, but the highest perfection of devotional service is spontaneous love of Godhead. Krishna Prema, Panchama Purushartha, means the fifth goal of persons. Purusha, in this particular case, refers to persons, sometimes refers to males, but in this particular case is a generic term. It refers to persons. Artha means like what one wants. Generally, artha is used in Srila Prabhupada's books as meaning money, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, like economic development. But it actually means one's objectives. For example, there's an interesting verse in the Bhagavatam, Nate vidu swartha gatim bhi Vishnu, which means they do not know that swa-artha, their ultimate goal, is Vishnu. Nate vidu swartha gatim bhi Vishnu darashaya yebahir artha manya andar yatandar ubiyagemanas tibishin dandram damni bada. So dasya sakya vatsalya ara ye shringara dasa saka gurukanta ashraya yahara. The servant, friend, superior, and conjugal lover are the shelters of the transcendental mellows called dasya, sakya, vatsalya, and shringara. Because here we're talking about the four top mellows. There's a servitude, friendship, parental, and finally the conjugal relationship with Krishna. Aishvarya Jnana Yukta Kevala Bhavahara Aishvarya Jnana Napai Brachandra Kumara. There are two kinds of emotion, bhava. Emotion with an understanding of the Lord's full opulences is called Aishvarya, means an opulence. Jnana, Yukta, and pure uncontaminated emotion is called Kevala. In other words, I'll explain this. One cannot achieve shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Maharajananda, simply by knowing his opulences. So a devotee actually forgets the opulences and power of God, a pure devotee, in order to relate to Krishna intimately. And the way he forgets is because of Krishna's energy called Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is the Maya, or the energy. Maya doesn't always mean illusion, it means energy in this particular context. Sometimes it means mercy, by which one in the spiritual world forgets that Krishna is God, so they can interact with Krishna and they can have all these amazing emotions. And the purport, see Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 192. Nayam Sukapo Bhagavan Dehinam Gopika Sutaha Jnaninam Chatma Bhutanam Hita Bhakti Matamiha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to those devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. That's also from the Bhagavatam 10:9-21. Atmabhuta Shabde Kahe Parishara Gana Aishvarya Gane Lakshmina Haila Brajendra Nandana. The word Atmabhuta means personal associates. Through the understanding of the Lord's opulence, the goddess of fortune could not receive the shelter of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Here we're referring to Lakshmi. We previously told the story how Lakshmi would perform austerities for millions or thousands of years, and she couldn't enter into Vrindavan, at least into the mood of the gopis, because she was attached to her opulent position and the opulent understanding of her consort Narayan. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, has complete knowledge of Krishna's opulences, but she could not achieve the association of Krishna by dint of such knowledge. The devotees in Vrindavan, however, actually enjoy the association of Krishna. And I think that's where we should end now. That's the last text is chapter 7 up to 29. Okay, so now we will stop sharing the screen. We will allow you to unmute yourselves and ask questions if you so desire. Does anyone have a question? And you can raise your hand. You can type in the text window or the chat window as it's called. Okay, Madhava.
Dandavat Gurudev. So I have a question in this chapter when Lord meets Vallabhatta, and in text number 14 it said that only Lord Krishna can provide the static love. So that only Krishna, it means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, non-different, Advaita means Vishnu Tattvas, only they can award static love of Krishna. Is that correct?
Yes, but Krishna is also there in his holy name.
Okay.
So therefore, Prabhupada was able to award ecstatic love of Krishna because if one is empowered, like Prabhupada said, one must hear the holy name from the lips of a pure devotee. So Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasavik. So that's called the. Let me complete that verse. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasavigra Purnashurta Nityamukta Vinatwam Namanami. Now Krishna is not different from his holy name. His name is like Chintamani. It's a touchstone, and the name is called the Nama Avatar. So yes, it's only Krishna. Like for example, if I were just to go to someone and say, I give you love of God, it wouldn't work. But if I were to say, chant Krishna's name, and here's Krishna's name, because by Prabhupada's mercy I have been given the authority to give Krishna's name. Chant Krishna's name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then it is Krishna giving pure love of God. And actually it's Radharani. I mean, just to be really precise, Bhakti, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhakti is not directly given by Krishna, it's given by Krishna's devotee. And so it's given by Radharani. So when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Radha and Krishna manifest themselves. So yes. So
Thank you.
And Lord Chaitanya, of course, inaugurated the Yuga Dharma, Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, as one of the verses we were actually citing. Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vinayanayahi, Bhagavartana. We're actually citing that earlier in this chapter.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Who else has a question? Raise your hand, type in the text.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Rakesh.
My question is in relation to the yesterday's, like you talked about humility. It doesn't mean thinking less of oneself, but thinking others are more than you. Can you please explain a bit more on that, please?
I said humility does not mean to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. Try to understand that statement. To think less of yourself means basically almost like depression. Like, I am horrible, I'm miserable, I'm a worm in stool, I am useless, hopeless. Sounds like I'm depressed if I keep saying these things. But basically, we should be thinking of Krishna and less about ourselves. We need to think about ourselves a little bit, what time am I going to get up in the morning, when am I going to chant my rounds, practical stuff. How many chapters of the Gita am I going to read today? What are my responsibilities even in this world? So you need to think of yourself to a certain extent. However, the whole idea is to think less of yourself, is to think of yourself less. In other words, not as often, and to think of Krishna and the service to Krishna more. And that's true humility. True humility means to think, what does Krishna want? Rather than, what do I want? What are my feelings? To a certain extent, we have to be aware of our feelings and needs and everything like that. I'm not negating that aspect of our existence that we have to be aware of our feelings and needs. However, it means primarily to be aware of our feelings and needs in relationship to our service to the Supreme. And that's humility. And also the surrendering principles, accepting everything favorable to serve Krishna, and rejecting everything unfavorable. Okay, good question. So, who else has a question? Raise your hand or unmute yourself or type in the text window, or else we're going to end. So, going once. Okay, going twice. I guess we're going to end early, and tomorrow we'll continue with our reading of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta from Antya, Lila, Chapter 7. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.